So a lot of times we get confused. We kind of try to match it with the elements we know. But the real connotation for these elements are little different. Like fire represents energy. Water, you can say, represents life. Air represents its volatility, right? And space represents its essence, consciousness. So, like that. So, don't take these elements in a very literal sense. Okay. So, that's very important. Otherwise, it creates a lot of confusion. So, each element brings certain essence, a characteristic, a different state of consciousness, you can say, into ourselves. So, the best way to look at it is the earth element represents certain state of consciousness, space element represents certain state of consciousness, fire element represents certain state of consciousness. Same thing for all the other elements. So if you look at it that way, it's a symbolic representation of certain level of consciousness. Think of it like that. It's very easy to absorb this concept of these elements and the points, even though now we kind of coining the new term for this is chakra. But I mean, think of it as like a point. Each point represents a different state of consciousness. So the earth element at point 1 brings more of acceptance. Space element brings peace. Fire elements bring love. Water element brings courage. Air element represents clarity. If you look at it this way, like fire, think of fire as like the emotional outburst. The fire, that emotion in its purest essence is love. So as this conscious state, the emotional conscious state is becoming purer and purer and purer, it tends to become love. So the lower aspects are all different emotions, the opposite of love. It is because it's not exactly opposite of love, if you see in a sense. As it gets refined, it tends to become love. So in a very esoteric traditional traditions, people talk as if you want to become a saint or a godly divine essence, you have to devoid of all emotions, all feelings, all everything. You become like a stone. That's how it appears to me when I read them. But in heartfulness, it's quite opposite. You become a complete human being with all the feelings, all the emotions, everything, tending with a tendency to refine all aspects of life. That is heartfulness, if you ask me. The good definition of all heartfulness is bringing a total balance and refinement in yourself. So these elements are representing the highest refined state you can reach at each state of consciousness. A total acceptance we get reach at an earth element when we reach that refined consciousness. And same thing with the peace, love, courage, and clarity. And once this refinement comes into our existence with all the chakras, about 5, then we move into the higher regions, what is called. We're going to read about it in the subsequent chapters. But this is the essence to understand the chakras. In a traditional sense of chakras, which are all along the spinal cord, right? They also represent different conscious states. But what happened is because the spinal cord is associated with the nervous system, all the nerves are coming out of spinal cord. Entire nervous system comes out of spinal cord. So there is a certain, at each chakra, along with the spinal cord, there is some certain energy or potentiality assigned to these chakras along the spinal cord. So, because these are energy centers, stimulating them releases energy, and how much you want to stimulate, how you want to deal with it is a very delicate process. In that process, you can damage yourself. That's why in our heartfulness system, we don't stimulate these chakras at all. All that we are doing is, so there is a kundalini at the bottom. All that we are doing is we're just cleaning so that the energy flow is in a very balanced sense. So that's where the cleaning helps. So we are cleaning the entire system so that all the energies are balanced. They're not getting accumulated at a point and blowing up. As the energy blows up here, it shatters the entire nervous system around this place. We don't want that to happen. So that's why heartfulness is a very effective system without causing any damage to yourself. And it refines you, more and more refinement, rather than activating a chakra. So here, even though we are calling a chakra, we don't activate a chakra, we refine the chakra. There's a total difference. We bring the highest potential out of this chakra. We refine it, we don't stimulate it, we don't expand it, like we don't blow it up. I mean, the expansion means we don't blow it up. Because if you are stimulating, the energy here is growing and growing and growing, and it explodes. We don't want that. So that's why think of chakras as a state of consciousness. And when we talk about these characteristics, the opposite is at the lowest, and the refined state is at the highest. That's it. So it's very simple that way to understand and accept. And it also gives us certain aspiration to refine ourselves. Right? Okay. Any questions thus far? Comments? Okay. Let's move to the next. So it's a transcending. Refinement is also another word for refinement is transcending. For example, to rise above the swings of contentment and discontentment, we cultivate acceptance. So the quality of the earth element, the first chakra, likewise, to rise above calm and disturbance, we cultivate peace. So I'll tell you something about this acceptance. We can now see the nature's design helps to overcome the swings of the opposites. So we are always swinging between, the opposites. And this is a very natural process of life. We swing this way, there is contentment. We swing this way, there is discontentment. And we are always somewhere in the middle, depending on our life situations. So the question is, should I not feel discontentment at all? If I am not feeling discontentment, let me tell you, there is something absolutely wrong with you. You need a psychiatric help. If you are only contentment, then that is also a problem. So the swing has to be there between the discontentment and the contentment. And the one which holds you from going away from here is this pendulum, like in the clock. And this is acceptance. It is bringing you back towards the contentment. If you completely go towards the contentment, it is complete bringing you back to the middle. So this is your middle ground where you can tend this way or this way based on the situation. Both are required. So do not assume that we have to be always content. Do not assume that we are always discontent. We are swinging back and forth, and it is very much required for the life. So we are not becoming stoics, that where if there is a situation which creates discontentment, we don't feel any discontentment. This is why we tend to feel that we are failing in spirituality, because we are creating this ideal condition that I have to be always in a content state. And life proves the other way. Then we assume, oh, I'm not growing spiritually because I'm not feeling this contentment all the time. You see the problem there? So both are required. All the opposites are required, and life is full of opposites. And when we accept this situation, I take the contentment and discontentment equally. I consider them equal. And then it puts me in a state where I can choose which way to swing depending on the situation without affecting my inner self. So that is what is refined consciousness mean. I can touch the pinnacle of the contentment. I can touch the pinnacle of the discontentment without being affected. So that is what acceptance really means. Acceptance doesn't mean that when I'm in discontent state, it will take me to a content state. No, that's not how the acceptance work. So this acceptance, you hear this word time and again. If you understand this state of acceptance, then you will also understand how to manage your discontentment. And more than discontentment, the contentment needs to be managed um, a, a lot, very well. Because if I am content, it don't propel me to do things in life. So there is problems with the contentment also. In fact, there are many problems with the contentment than the discontentment. Okay. So it's very essential to understand how these things work. And that's why we meditate. Meditate brings that wisdom to understand, perceive, and apply these things in our life. Okay. All right. Any comments, questions?
Yes, so brother, this reminds me of, I listen to Michael Singer sometimes. He talks about that there is one guru, now I forgot the name of the guru. Somebody asked, do you feel anger? Does a master feel anger? And he answered, yes, but it's like writing on water. It does come, but it goes away as quickly as it comes.
Right.
So that's what this reminds me about the pendulum.
Yes, absolutely correct. That's a good point. Yes, so that's why it allows, this acceptance allows us to, doesn't go deep into that state. We kind of get, when we get deep into that state, if I'm very deep in the contentment, a small discontentment creates a lot of chaos in myself. And if I'm always discontent, in a discontentment, the life appears to be, very boring. We cannot cherish life. So what this does is it puts us in a state where we can reach this balanced point very quickly. Once we reach this balance point very quickly, then we know how to adjust ourselves with the life situations. So this is my balance point. And in order to have this control or a better regularity over this balance point is the acceptance. Okay. All right. So spiritual anatomy is an integrated system and the chakras are interconnected. So the best approach of integrated development is to work at the root. Always meditate on the first chakra, the heart chakra. When you meditate on the heart chakra, its intuitive intelligence directs the spiritual energies to work across all the chakras and bring them into a state of integration. So that's why the heart chakra. In fact, in Babaji's, in one sentence, I'll share it with you all, maybe in our next week session. If I remember correctly, he says the heart is the intersections between the inanimate and the animate. Inanimate state is which is not manifested yet. Animate state is which is already manifested, which is already in motion, right? So what happens when through heart only the mergence is possible? The final mergence, we all think that we have to go to a central region to merge, but actual mergence takes place in the heart chakra because this is the intersection. In fact, symbolically, the cross also represents the same. Cross represents the intersection between the divine life and the human life. So by meditating on the heart, we are getting access into the divine realm, divine consciousness. That's why meditate on the heart. So if 5 lights are connected to the same switch, they all glow or dim simultaneously when you flip the switch. Similarly, when you meditate on the heart, work happens across the chakras and your heart regulates the work. So focus on the essential practices and trust the inner senses, your heart to guide the process. So about the journey in the heart, there is one more thing to point out. During your stay here, you catch the glimpses of what lies ahead in the form of special experiences. So in the early days of my practice, during one of the visits, Babaji, I developed a peculiar state of consciousness that lasted few days. In this state, I was almost carefree. Have you seen a dog relaxing in the shade of a tree in the blazing hot summer? Nothing bothers it. It slouches and enjoys the shade while the earth around it is scorched away. So even if someone kicks the dog, it limps away and slumps back again. So my condition was something similar. I wanted nothing and I needed nothing. Even hunger didn't bother me. So if someone gave me food, I would eat. Otherwise, I would meditate, stay absorbed, and relax. This lasted for a few days. And then one day, Babuji looked at me and said, "You should be in this condition 24/7." I wondered why he said that and how he had such a clear insight into depth of my heart. Many years later, I understood Babuji commented on my condition. I was given a glimpse of the spiritual condition of insignificance, abodiyat. Abodiyat is a Sufi term. So this condition is a very advanced state that arrives much later in the journey at the ninth chakra. But while I was still the beginner, I got the taste of it. So this is a very good. I mean, I'm glad Daji shared this um, state. So this is basically an indication that while we are meditating, we get the conditions of the higher chakras. regardless where we are. So I said this many times. See, this is a vertical scale and we have an horizontal scale. When you are at a point, I mean, don't think of these points as 1, 2, 3, just like the chakras. There is several mini points we go through before we cross from 1 to 2 and to 3 and 4, right? But while I am at one point in a meditation, I might be given a condition at the 9th chakra or 13th chakra, doesn't matter. It gives us the glimpses into this, and we feel those conditions of the higher chakras as well, regardless of where we are. So our journey is like this. I mean, we are going from one chakra to another chakra to another chakra, jumping and jumping. But slowly there is a shift happens. So when a shift happens, when I move from one chakra to another chakra, this is my shift. Now I shifted in red color. I expand. And while expanding, I might get the glimpses of the higher conditions as well. But when I completely settled in this chakra, then I move to the next level. And then I move to the next and the next. So it happens, the journey takes place. But doesn't mean I don't get the conditions of the higher while I'm at one. Even sometimes if I go to the seventh chakra, for example, I might get the condition of the first chakra. So these experiences kind of gives us an idea of what the next state might be, or next higher state might be. So that keeps us going in this path, right? So your experience is not an indication of anything other than you got an experience of certain conscious state. So we experience it, we stay with it, and we try to keep moving. If we get stuck on a condition, then we are growing horizontally, which is not a good thing. Because these conditions, puts us into a state where we like it so much, we don't want to come out of it. Yes, Cliff, you have a question?
Yes. So are these transitions to the various states random, or is it your inner essence directing you to these various states because that's what it needs at the time?
It's kind of both, a mix of both. It's random, at the same time it's very progressive, and also depending on your inner need to propel you to a higher conditions, you will probably feel the highest condition, just like Daji experienced it. Is on this first point he experienced the 9th point condition. So it kind of it's many, it's very complicated. It's like the quantum physics. You cannot put a finger on it and say this is the state. It varies from time to time depending on your condition, your mindset, where you are, how you are looking into this, perceiving the spirituality. Lot of factors play a role here. So that's why we continuously practice to adjust ourselves so that we get prepared to receive these higher conditions. Okay. All right.
So is there any significance to whether you recognize it or not?
Doesn't matter.
Didn't think so. Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. There is something inside you, whether you consciously recognize it or not, something inside you recognizes it.
Okay.
Right? So that is enough. All right. So we're almost at the